Welcome back to Hustle and Heart, the podcast for visionaries who believe cities, brands, and communities should feel like home. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Angela. So, Angela, if you wouldn't mind, please share with our listeners a little bit more about you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much, Edie. I'm Angela Dodd. I'm the founder and CEO of Females in Food, which is a leadership development and talent platform connecting women across the entire F&B value chain. And our mission is to advance more women into senior leadership, into that C-suite. Food buying decisions are made 80% by women, and we are striving to get that representation higher within the C-suites. We are a national and global organization, community platform. That is part of my job. I am also trained as a food scientist and have spent 20 years in the food and beverage industry, primarily on the B2B ingredient side. I'm also a mama of two little boys, and I live in Minneapolis.
Well, I'm so glad that we got connected. I want to
Yeah.
say like 5 or 6 years ago by a mutual friend who is helping us with social media. And when I was in town to work on a food hall curation project, I said, Angela, you're here. Let's get
Yes.
together. And so it's been great to see our relationship flourish over the years and to
So
be able to
fun.
cross paths in different but similar industries.
Yeah, we've initially connected on so many different topics. One, food and beverage, but entrepreneurial spirits as well. And then all of your work with women in restaurants as well, and everything that you're doing on that side. So it's been a great friendship.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm curious for the listeners to know a little bit more about why you felt the need for Females in Food to come about. I mean, I know it's something that had been percolating for years, probably before you started it, and it's like communities that we all form, a little bit of a labor of love, and sometimes good things are worth waiting for. So share with us a little bit more about how that came about and how you've then fostered into its current shape.
Yeah, the start of it was really to serve this white space of, providing women with the resources in an accessible and affordable way, the leadership development to help empower and advance their own careers. That's one piece of it. But the other is just the network and connection. I realized we can get a lot done. Women get things done, right? And if we're showing up and actually helping one another, how quickly we can solve problems within our industry. But if you go back 6, 10 years, there really wasn't the community spaces that there are today through the pandemic. We'd get together once a year at a trade show, and I realized one, people weren't having conversations on a daily basis across our industry sectors. I think corporate food service, retails, B2B ingredients, CPG, consultants, founders. There just wasn't that space. And also when you need your network, right? It's not just when you don't need your network, but when you do need your network, having that space to show up and give back to women, and then also for it to be there when you need it as well. And so I realized there was this white space, and if we could just connect women in a more efficient way, that we probably could solve a lot of our own problems, right? Like we could do a lot together. And so between this idea of what would the industry look like if we actually had access to the resources and we had readily available to us women who are willing to show up and help us achieve our goals. That's a powerful combination in space. And so that's where it all started. And truthfully, I did not get into it thinking I'd be a tech founder or a community builder. I'm not really sure what this would look like on a daily basis as I moved forward, but I knew I didn't want to spend another 20 years in an industry that I love so much without putting time, energy, resources behind being a part of the solution. And so that's where it stemmed from. And today we have over 2,000 women within our talent network. We do 50 annual events a year, serving our members from really robust leadership development, the networking, also an executive advisory circle. We have a board of directors. Really proud of all the work that we're doing across the spectrum. Also working with employers to help them with attracting, retaining, and advancing talent through our employer branding initiatives, leadership development, and talent recruitment. So a lot of different things going on within our broader platform to kind of be that holistic 360-degree approach to the solution.
I'm sure that you have many success stories to share from your members, either, what you've seen directly or stories that they've shared with you. Are there, any that are kind of top of mind right now that really show the fruits of your labor? It takes a lot of work, as I've
Yeah.
seen you've experienced to bring people together when they have so many other things pulling them in other directions, but that community piece is so necessary. And I think people underestimate how we're humans, we're social beings. We need physically to be around each other despite having this amazing technology. So, again, hosting all those events, both virtually and in person, what are some, exciting success stories that you're most proud of that you could share with the listeners?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It's the success stories that really keep us moving forward as community builders, right? Because in the back end, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of
Yes.
work for the teams and just to coordinate and you know what I've learned through the 6 years that we've been doing this is that success looks different for every single person. We have various workshops on leadership development topics, but we got feedback from a member like the next day saying, "I took that advice I heard from that speaker and I did the hard thing that I've been putting off for many years," right? Like those are small steps to activate somebody into the right direction. And that's what success looked like for that individual in that day, in that moment. We've also, been in the middle of landing people in new roles, new positions, right? And helping them negotiate for big advances in their careers from, salary or benefits perspective. So those are really meaningful wins as well. But beyond some of the work that, to narrow it down into one thing, the events that we do when, we get feedback from our corporate partners, that we sponsored that event and that actually resulted in, you know, $300,000 of new projects for us because we were able to connect with clients and business partners. I'm like, that is driving meaningful business results, right? When we're able to be that connector and connecting people with the right people in the right moment to make innovation and opportunities happen. And, we have hundreds, thousands of those examples after through our community, through our events. We have members showing up within our FIF Connect, which is our mobile platform and app in which people are able to crowdsource. And so we had a member through the pandemic. She's like, I need to import these ingredients. I've never done that, right? We were all scrambling for answers and resources during a very challenging time. And our members are able to crowdsource feedback from the top experts in the industry and get answers immediately. And when we think about what does success mean, for me, ultimately, we want to get more people into the C-suite, right? But how does that happen? It's helping people find success in their day-to-day roles, and those steps ultimately lead to progress and change and advancement. And so it's those little wins every single day that drive us forward as a community. That's a long answer. I'm
Yeah,
like, there's not
no,
one
it's
thing.
great. Absolutely. Well, and that it's something that I try to remind my team as well as the clients that we work with is that you're not going to have immediate success overnight. I was in Barcelona earlier this year and I went to the Picasso Museum and you look at how many times he iterated on the same picture, the same landscape, and you could see its evolution and how he grew. And the more that he just did the work, then the next time he did it was a little bit better. And then next time was a little bit better. And then, who knows whether he was ever satisfied with it, but you could see his growth and his evolution as an artist. And I think people are like, I want this to happen and I want it to happen tomorrow. And for musicians too, it takes years of practicing and investing in yourself. And I love telling my team the best investment you can ever make that no one can ever take away from you is in your knowledge, in your growth. You have to be curious to learn from others because literally they have so much wisdom to impart on you.
That's also one of the areas that as a founder I found the biggest challenge is actually getting women to talk about their skills and achievements and what they have to offer to somebody else. One of the things that I wish I could shake out of everybody to say, we all have skills, knowledges, and experience to help somebody else. We talk about our give gets and in one making sure people are showing up and asking and being intentional for what they need and how people can help them. But then two, recognizing we all have a ton of experience to share with other people and to step up and actually share that and let people know how you can help them. A lot of times people don't know, right? How you can actually help. And I always say that's my tip, even in job search or networking, really helping people understand how is it that you can add value or help them. And it's one of the quickest ways to unlock those relationships.
Couldn't agree with you more. So, quick question for you about what's happening in the food industry right now. I feel like we're in this time where things are just uncertain. As much as I'd love for us to kind of go back to our agricultural roots and really source locally. I interviewed a farmer for a podcast previously, and he had a guest come visit, and the guest was from Colorado, and he had a farm in Georgia. And he said, "Wayne, you need to send me some of this beef. It's so good." And he goes, "No, if you don't eat locally where you are, then you're not going to build the resources in your body to survive and thrive where you are." So I want to hear from you about what's happening in the food industry in regards to post pandemic and just what's happening as of late that you can impart with our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of change, right? We're in a very, I'd say, interesting time in the food and beverage industry as we're being influenced by, changing government regulations, changing consumer preferences. You think about everything that's going on in the GLP-1 side of the industry and how that's significantly changing how consumers eat and behave around food. And then also the changing landscape around tariffs that seem to be swinging every day. It's so funny when you talk about, not funny, but it's interesting when you talk about eating local because I think all of these changes that are happening in our industry right now are forcing us to really understand how global our supply chain really is. Um, and whether that serves you or how you're choosing as a consumer to eat, but our supply chain is very global. And so when you have these small but very large things that are outside influencers. COVID was one of them. We were talking through COVID. We were trying to figure out. You had this surplus of people buying food off the shelves that, you know, significantly changed our supply chain and trying to respond. When ports were shut down or countries weren't letting things, airplanes weren't flying, we couldn't get things across the sea. And so, we've learned a lot as the food and beverage industry coming through the pandemic on how to respond and navigate some of these challenging and hard times. I'd say we're in that spot again. I think through the changing landscape of regulations, of tariffs, of GLP-1, we're really testing our resilience as an industry to say, how are we going to push forward? How are we going to respond? How are we going to be innovative? Ultimately, as a food and beverage industry, in my perspective, we're always here to serve the consumer and be good stewards of the earth and ultimately connect us all through food. That's why we're all showing up and being passionate. We all have to eat. How do we come together as a community and do that, right? In a way that's nourishing to people, planet. And I think we always have to be challenging ourselves to how can we be better? How do we be more innovative to continue to serve our communities?
You're absolutely right. I continue to scratch my head every once in a while, like, our raspberries are coming in from Chile. That's the craziest thing ever. Sorry, this is just bothering me. I moved it the other day and I hadn't moved it back. So let me just fix that. But yeah, it's just so fascinating to see how the world continues to turn. And I remind all that I come in contact with change is inevitable. It's going to happen. Let's be
Gonna
part of the
happen.
solution. Let's try to make it better. Every day is a beta test. So yesterday happened. Let's make tomorrow and today better than yesterday. So
Exactly.
I'm curious to hear in your work in food science how you blend the science, the strategy, and practicality in terms of working with food founders or CPG to make sure that what they want to take to market actually has the ability to um, be stable, for example, and being able to have like a shelf life and perhaps what it looks like and all the pieces that I think a lot of founders go, well, I make the most amazing salsa, but,
Yeah.
the process to get it to
Barbecue sauce.
market is completely foreign to what, they've been doing at home, for example.
Yeah, that journey for most it's one of the it's I laugh about this all the time because when I look at a lot of founders, they do not come from the food and beverage industry. They come from completely unrelated industries where they see a white spot and they're like, "I'm going to go after this. I have this idea." And love the passion, the innocence, and the grit that, like, a lot of these founders come with into this industry because they need it, in order to survive, in my opinion. I find that there's a lot of people who have a ton of food and beverage industry experience, myself included, who would never launch a product. As a food scientist, I've launched a lot of products for a lot of companies, but would I go out and be a solo founder to launch my own food product? No, because it's really tough. To do it right, I mean, as you said, from food safety, documentation, the scale up, the manufacturing, all of it. I mean, the amount of money it takes to do that process well. And when around every turn you're trying to connect with the right people, cash flow it, you get your dream retailer. Okay, you've moved through the farmers markets and now you land your dream retailer. Most people don't realize where it fails is that funding level and being able to cash flow that operation into sourcing your ingredients, producing it, and from the time you actually get paid and when you have to pay others. So often that's where it fails. Is a place that's particularly close to my heart because I've seen how hard it is. I've personally, gone through that journey with companies who are in a healthy financial position to be able to fund the new launch of food products. So I've seen how a good process works from a marketing, food safety, manufacturing side of everything. But I've also, on the flip side, been alongside many founders in that journey and seen the heartache, the grit, how much they want to make it work, and not having the resources or the funding to do it, and how many really great food products never make it to the shelf because of that. And so, within Females in Food, we've had this like organic community of consultants, fractional experts who have come together and who really focus on those emerging founders. And I love this kind of community within a community that we've built. And these individuals specialize in helping those early stage founders. I find that one of the things that does not exist in our industry is a singular place, right? Where people can go where this is my idea, you know, here's all the resources I can tap into to make my idea come to life. And oh, here's the funding, right? Because we know women in general do not get the funding. The percentage, I think, is still like 2 to 3% of VC dollars are going to women. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like that's around an accurate
You're
number.
absolutely right. Yes.
There's so much change and work that still needs to happen, but I am really proud of, the community that we've created inside the community of really deep and broad expertise across food science, food safety, marketing, production, co-mans to help some of these early stage founders get their products to market because it is really hard.
I think what I have been privy to is I actually had the opportunity to either invest or help raise money for a group who had a contract with Target. And they said, hey, we really want to carry your product, but we need X production. And in order to support the company to get to produce that, they needed to invest in systems, they needed to scale, they needed to hire more people. And so they needed money ultimately to do that. The other problem that I think people don't realize is that Target will carry it, but they're not going to pay you until it sells, or they'll pay you days after it sells. And so you're waiting all that time. You've produced the product, it's sitting on the shelf, and you're hoping and praying that it does move, but you don't know with confidence that it will. And so it's very exciting to win the eye of these bigger brands, but it is very difficult to be successful with them because of how much you need to do and how you need to do it in advance. Women appreciate this. You've been to a consignment store, you give them your clothes. When they sell it, they'll take a cut of it and then they'll write you a check. But you never know when that's going to happen. And so you're prepping for this anticipated income, but there's no promise that it is going to be
Yeah.
there tomorrow.
And they're not necessarily going to market it for you either. Also, where is it out on the shelf? And is that consumer even finding their way to it? A lot, yeah. And those are all the fine details, right? That you don't get told up front. And those are kind of lived lessons. And so how do we make sure new founders don't have to continuously relearn those lessons? We've seen a lot of different groups and spaces try to kind of bring cohorts and bring people through kind of those teachings and those opportunities to go through an incubator to get their product. I think those are really great places for founders to learn and build their product up. But ultimately, the funding is a big piece of this.
Sure. So with that, here we're talking about big companies and small companies. What I love sharing is the knowledge that I gained from working with big national brands that have, 75 locations, 100 locations. And so as I'm advising emerging brands or ones that have 1 to 5, I can help them bring that knowledge about how to get to those numbers if they want to. So what have you seen in terms of working with these top ingredient companies? Can the big companies learn from the small ones, and can the small
Yeah.
ones learn from the big ones?
I definitely have had experience on both sides, big and small. And, the large companies bring a tremendous amount of expertise, a ton of expertise, science, data, um, technical support. But with larger organizations, you also get a lot of process, right? And so I think one area that larger companies are a bit disadvantaged in is just their size is their greatest asset, but it's also their weakest point because it inhibits speed, right? And so a lot of these smaller, scrappier companies, they're able to turn around answers or products or samples very quickly. They're operating with a smaller team and maybe a smaller client base, and their speed at response on whatever the request is typically very fast. And I think that's one area the larger companies will continuously have to work to find efficiencies. And I think AI is bringing a lot of those efficiencies to us, truthfully. Like the amount of change that we've seen, not just in our, not in just in the food and beverage industry in general across our lives through AI in 1 year, I think that is going to be a game changer when it comes to speed and efficiencies for a lot of these larger organizations who have unfortunately kind of fallen into the burden of due process and which slows things down. AI, I think things are going to speed up across the board for better or worse with AI.
It's funny, there's a restaurant that I love, and they had this like chocolate chip cookie dessert, but they only had it in mass production recipe. And I said, well, I really want to make this, but I don't want to make it like two half sheet pans of it. I just want, like 12 bars. And so it was fascinating. I put it into Chat GPT. I said, I want you to make of this recipe. I just want it to yield a quantity of 12. And so boop, boop, boop. I mean, I felt a little guilty because I really should be doing the math and the calculations, but I didn't want to get it wrong, right? I didn't want, too much coconut or whatnot. So I find that there is, a little bit of joy in using that tech.
So much. Even simple Excel things that I was outsourcing, compare these two Excel sheets and tell me the differences between the two. It's done in a second, right? And that was something it would take me days before to like, because I didn't know how to do it on Excel myself. So I'd have to go find somebody to actually do those comparisons for me. And now within seconds, GPT or whatever AI platform you're using can spit it out.
And to see what tech can help us with.
I feel very empowered with it.
Completely agree. So I'm curious, as you've come across, these founders and folks in just the food industry, what do you wish more investors understood, especially for women founders? What
Yeah.
insights should they be aware of or be open to that you think could help progress the process faster?
Uh, I think more investors need to, um, you know, eh, not see betting on a woman as a risk, right? Like, take the opportunity for what it is and know that when a woman is leading it, like, they're gonna bring more passion, more grit, more efficiency. I mean, I don't know anybody who's more efficient than an entrepreneur and a mother and, don't have enough time in the day, right? So you naturally find ways to be as efficient as possible to get things done. And for me, I would bet on a female founder any day of the week because I know she's going to push forward with the tenacity it's going to take to make this a success and also those that are willing to bring in a team around them as well, right? As leaders, regardless of gender, a good leader knows when to go at it alone and when to bring on others for the journey. But I think not enough credit is given to women founders and what they're capable of. And unfortunately, I think biases are made, and ultimately, whether women founders are presenting differently or pitching differently or look or sound different than a traditional founder, like, I think we need to put some of those biases aside and know that you got some kick-ass people out there that can get things done and to not look at it as taking a risk, but a really solid, you know, leap and and sound business judgment to move forward in those situations. I don't know if that's the most eloquent way to put it, but I think more investors need to take that chance on women founders.
My husband and I were in the car the other day with our 12-year-old, and he goes, "Okay, if you had one wish, what would it be?" And I thought, where did he get this from? And I turned around and I said, "Noah, what's your wish?" He goes, "I wish it was summer again." And I go, "Cool." I said, "Is there a rule against wishing for more wishes?" He goes, "Yeah, just one." I said, "Okay, good. I'm going to think about it for a little bit." My husband's answer was, "I wish to have endless money because I feel like with that, I could do so much good in the world. Whereas perhaps the ones that do have the money aren't necessarily looking for humanity and helping to serve others." Bless you. And so, my question for you is, if every woman in the food industry had access to one resource that could transform her career, what would it be? And how can it make the industry better?
I think all women have access to it. It's females in food. Come on over. I think our community can help transform your career, and I think that they should bring their companies along with it, along with them, and bring them on that journey, which will help give them access, right, to not just a community and a network that want to help them succeed, but also the resources and development to help them along the way. So that's my shameless plug.
It's beautiful. No, of course. Totally.
They have it.
Yeah.
Just come on over, visit femalesinfood.community. But, the other thing that I would say is a game that I see women need, right, to really succeed. One thing that's a game changer is really the confidence in themselves. And we all have access to that. We just need to unlock it, right? And so the confidence and the courage to bet on yourself, to lean in. I went through those early stages of my career, which I was the person in the back of the room shaking to raise my hand because I was terrified of asking a question. And I just so encourage women to take up that space, have the courage, have the confidence in themselves, and anything is possible. It truly is. It requires work. It requires consistency in that work and steps forward. But if you continuously show up and put one step in front of the other and have confidence in yourself and show that confidence to the world, I think there's a lot that we can continue to do in this industry. So that's the one thing that I think we all need more of.
Well, and I think that also comes in the community that you're building and supporting one
Yes.
another. And the more that people are able to share their story, because you start talking about what you do on a daily basis, and it's just second nature, right? It just comes out of you because you're in it day in and day out. But maybe we're just not asking people to share their stories as much as they should be.
I agree. I talk to somebody every other day, and I have to remember that they're not eat eating, sleeping, and living every moment that I am in my head. Right? It seems extremely redundant in my own head as to what I do and where I excel. But I do think that we need to invite more people to share their journeys. Um, and ask those questions. Slow down. Get to know people. We live in a world that we're going 100 miles an hour. I have 1,000 competing priorities at any given moment. And I am always encouraging myself to say, how can I ask more open-ended questions and not just assume I know the answer, or I'm the natural extrovert, so silence really makes me uncomfortable. And people need time to think and respond. And I have to encourage myself to slow down and say, just tell me about yourself. Tell me more. A lot of what we've been trying to do at FIF events is these question prompts. Tell me before anybody else can answer, let's go around this circle and you have to share the answer to this one question prompt. And that could be, I'm feeling the most proud of. And everybody has to share before we can jump into discussion. Or what's one skill that nobody outside of work that nobody would assume that you have, right? Like, I'm an avid sourdough baker and I am on this mission of perfecting the best sourdough. My husband would laugh at this, but I used to play a lot of golf, and most people don't know that about me either. I played golf through high school, right? And so there's fun things to know about people for me in this community, helping bring it out. That's how we have leaned into just in the past year, helping people like bring that out of them because they naturally won't start a conversation by saying, hello, I'm Angela Dodd,
Extraordinaire.
sourdough baker extraordinaire baker. Some fun tips.
I love that. One of the questions that I've been asked recently is, what does Google not know about you? And so that's kind of fun because, again, it opens the
Love
door
that.
for sharing.
I love that. If you want another fun way to do this, if you're a user of ChatGPT on a regular basis, I ask ChatGPT to tell me one thing about myself that I don't know. It will based on all the inputs, it
Same.
will come back to you and give you a whole paragraph about, what's one thing about myself that I wouldn't acknowledge. And it's a fun game to play with ChatGPT. I highly encourage it.
I agree. I think that would be a good, just exploratory session.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to our guest, Angela Dodd. Whether you're an emerging brand looking to scale, developers seeking smart retail solutions, or a city planning your next community hub, we're the pixie dust that makes it all come together. If this episode sparked something in you, drop a comment and share it with someone who you think will find it valuable.